Hi everyone! Today's simple tutorial is line and wash. It's a technique in watercolor where you use pen or ink or even pencil to sketch or draw, then overlay it with watercolor paint. Here I am sketching a cactus from observation. I look at the subject and sketch the contour edges. I do not mind the imperfection, but I make sure that I am looking at my subject and observing all the details of it. I use a waterproof pen for the line drawing because I don't want my line to fade when the watercolor is added. So here I have my mixed yellow and phthalo blue. I outline the drawing first, quickly wash my brush, then soften the edges with water. I prefer a loose way of painting, so instead of painting the leaf in one stroke, I would like the water and the paint to interact with each other. I also vary the value of the green, so in this one I darken it with more phthalo blue. So, and then I dab in the darker colors on the other parts of the leaf. So you can see how the dark paints is merging with the light paints. The nice thing about painting wet on wet is that you can see how the colors merge together. Like you can use a darker paint, then you dab into the previous wash, then you watch how the two colors interact with each other. So you can see a variety of tones in this cactus painting. For the pot, I paint an outline on the rim, then soften it with water. I think the faded line effect is quite interesting. In watercolor, you always paint from light to dark, so it is always better to lay in the light color first, then you gradually increase the intensity of your colors. It is also important to note where the light is coming from. So in this case, it is coming from the right side, so I am putting in the darkest dark towards the left. For the soil, I am doing a wet on wet by painting in water first, then dabbing in the dark brown color. In watercolor, we don't use white paint, but instead we leave the paper unpainted. So there are some white particles in the soil, so I did a bit of negative painting where I paint the space around it, leaving in some white shapes for the particles. So my painting is now dry and I am ready to do the glazing for the leaves. Glazing is another watercolor technique where you lay a darker wash of either the same or different color over the previous wash to create depth. Also, it allows you to see the underneath layers, so it makes your painting glow. Glazing can also help build darker values. So instead of like painting in one dark color, which makes your painting kind of flat, I think you can try glazing. Here I am using a slightly darker green and layering it over the previous wash. I continue to intensify the colors by layering the pot and the soil with darker paint. I also continue to note to make sure where the light is. For the soil, I use the quick dab effect like pointillism to create textures. To add visual interest, I do negative painting of leaves around the cactus. I'm not painting the actual leaf, but the space around it. So I outline the leaf first, then soften the area around with water. Lastly, I made some splatter by filling my brush with wet paint, then tap the brush on my finger to create random dots of colors. I think this adds freshness to this painting. I encourage you to give line and wash a try. Enjoy painting!